Okay, we're about to start. How's everyone doing? Can you hear me okay? Okay, so let's get going. Aloha. I bet you don't hear that every day in conferences. It's a time-neutral way of greetings where I'm from, which suits me fine because it is close to midnight my time. So naturally it's not a good morning time yet, but so for all of you in my shoes, aloha, and for everyone else, good morning. I hope that you're enjoying the summit so far. Just to introduce myself, I'm Ray Shirkadai. I'm the Executive Director and Chief Information Officer from Pacific Disaster Center. Now, for those of you who just heard disaster and said, uh-oh, we're here for smart cities and healthy cities, let me assure you, you're in the right room. As many of you actually might know, a lot of the concepts in smart cities and healthy cities originated from the last 3 or 4 decades of research in disaster management, particularly in sustainable development, disaster risk reduction, and resiliency. So at the Pacific Disaster Center, actually, we don't have boots on the ground. When people hear about disasters, the first thing that comes to mind is that storm, flood, and the event. But there's a lot more in disasters and things that impact disasters, like the strength of the healthcare system, educational system, transportation infrastructure, and so on. And bottom line, the efficacy and efficiency of service delivery to the citizens. So when I was asked to chair the session, I thought it was worthwhile to literally fly halfway around the world to hear from the best and the brightest, actually, in the field of AI and what they're doing with, and within the framework of the smart cities and healthy cities. So, as you know, until about little after 4 p.m., there are various tracks that you can attend to depending on the information that you're interested in. In this room, just until lunch, we'll be concentrating on healthy cities and AI and how AI is helping to advance the concepts. We'll be talking to and exploring with boundary-pushing innovators and decision makers who develop and adopt these solutions. So please remember to rate these speakers after the session using your app. I wanted to remind everyone that would provide some feedback, useful feedback to all of us. So to get things going, to kickstart things, we have a panel session. We're lucky to have this panel with us. The topic of the panel is the city as a living lab for AI solutions. We're so thrilled to have everyone with us, and moderating the session is Peter Jekyll, Chairman, Dutch AI Coalition, Wellbeing Plus Healthcare. So, Peter, please.
Thank you very much for being here and for having such a great audience. I am very honored and proud to announce the following speakers in this panel. Mark Stoevelaar, could you please join us? René Cummings, all the way from Virginia, and Alison Cohen. Alison, welcome. Well, I'm very proud and honored to discuss the city as a living lab for AI solutions. Before I introduce the panel members, I would like to say that my name is Peter Jekyll, and I am the chairman of the Netherlands AI Coalition for Wellbeing and Healthcare. And the Netherlands AI Coalition is a coalition with almost all stakeholders here in the Netherlands who are actively participating in AI innovations. For us in the Netherlands, the city is very important. We have many cities. One of the biggest cities is Amsterdam. I would love to introduce to you Mark Stoevelaar. Could you maybe briefly introduce yourself? Because Mark is CTO from the city of Amsterdam. Mark.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Stoevelaar. I work for the city of Amsterdam within the innovation department. And from there, actually involved in a couple different projects relating to artificial intelligence. So happy to tell something more about that and how we actually organize that within the city.
Great, thank you very much. René Cummings, you're from Virginia. You're professor in data science. Could you maybe briefly introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you so very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm René Cummings. I am a criminologist and a criminal psychologist. I'm also an AI ethicist and a data activist. I'm a data science professor at the University of Virginia, and I've spent quite some time in cities, looking at cities from the angle of crime, criminality, and violence, and ways in which we need to rethink urban planning to ensure that we make it more equitable and always more inclusive and justice-oriented. So nice to be here.
Great, thank you very much. And Alison Cohen, you're from Canada.
Yes, hello everyone. Good morning. My name is Allison. I work with Mila, which is the world's largest deep learning research institute based out of Montreal, Quebec. I work with a team called AI for Humanity, where we focus on AI applications that are socially beneficial. My area of expertise is actually in working in multidisciplinary settings to drive AI solutions that are meaningful and beneficial from an end user standpoint. And I focus specifically on a whole portfolio of AI projects, all of which are focused specifically on how we can engage with marginalized communities and make sure that their needs are met by the solutions we're building.
Great.
Happy to be here.
Great, thank you very much. And Alison just arrived from Uzbekistan. Before we will go to have an interesting discussion about this, the city as a living lab for AI solutions. And hopefully we'll have some time also to have a question from the audience afterwards. So stay sharp on that one. Mark, could you please elaborate us in how you are operating, let's say, in Amsterdam, and what do you think about the city as a living lab?
Yeah, sure. In terms of the city as a living lab for AI solutions, I think there's great potential for both the cities as well as the companies or the AI startups that we are trying to cooperate with. So looking at it from the city side, I think we have within Amsterdam our own AI team, which is expanding. But I think that to keep up with all the developments in the market, I think it's really important for us to cooperate with innovative companies and see what they can actually bring us. So to keep up to date with the state-of-the-art technologies, I think it brings us a lot to actually cooperate with the market and see how they can add value there. And then what I think is important that when we work together with them, that we can actually set the tone, we can set the guidelines. So we can determine within what borders the solutions that are being developed have to fit. So I think that by really cooperating with the market, that gives us the opportunity to also control what type of solutions are being developed cooperatively. And then I think from the other side, looking at the market, I think we can really help them with providing data, with really giving them information about the challenges that we are facing within the city, so that they can actually develop solutions that fit the needs, and they're actually sure that there is a customer for the services that they're developing, giving feedback on the solutions, and actually being a living lab for them to test the solutions that are being developed. So I think that both ways, it's really interesting for both the municipalities or governments, as well as the market players to work on this public-private cooperation. And then I think that what you currently see is that we have a couple instruments to actually do so. So I think that we have incubation programs within the city of Amsterdam to stimulate the AI climate. I think that, as you see, I'm participating in a European project where you get European funding to actually get the innovations accelerating as well. So I think that there's a couple nice instruments, and that what we try to do within the city is really bring them together in living labs. And see how we can bring all the new innovations together, learn, explore, and from there build a nice future. So what you, for example, see is that we work at the Johan Cruyff Arena, which is the football stadium for Ajax. We work at the Marineterrein, which is like a innovation hub for us. So I think that we're really trying to set the tone. Also disseminate the knowledge that we gain there with other municipalities, work with institutions as well to get their inputs. So I think that we're really trying to utilize the ecosystem of the different parties that we work with. And then from there work towards a future where we can actually, in an acceptable way, implement artificial intelligence within the city.
Great, thank you very much. Alison, what do you think about that, if you hear Mark's story?
I mean, I think what's so interesting about it is the collaboration that's happening between a whole bunch of different stakeholders, all of which have a vested interest in the benefit of the local population. And I think that that can be contrasted with the way that we're seeing AI be developed more broadly outside of the context of the living labs, where it's really semi-siloed, I would say, whereby it's the computer scientists, it's the software engineers that are making all of the decisions about what the technology should look like and what success means, often being assessed based on KPIs that are associated with profit. And so to have that sort of, the cities as a living lab represent an antidote to that approach to developing technology is incredibly promising. I think as long as cities as living labs continue to focus on how to best work with citizens in a participatory way, work in an evidence-based way as well, and in one in which the focus is really on collaboration, I think we're likely to see technology be developed that is more human-centric, human-focused than what we're seeing be built today, which is again, to some extent, removed from the end user. And I think that that's something I really want to caution against. Another aspect of the cities as living labs that I think are really interesting is the capacity to strengthen policymakers' understanding of the technology, because the more they understand it, the better they can regulate it and create regulatory environments and frameworks that are beneficial to end users, whether that be in the context of living lab solutions or technology that's deployed, more broadly outside of a municipality context. So I think that cities as living labs can actually serve as important antidotes to the way that technology is currently being built, as long as we focus on ways of collaborating, ways on centering communities, centering the end user, and then building an innovation ecosystem from there that can promote that approach more broadly.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. And René, what do you think about that?
Well, there's a lot to think about,
Yeah, I think so,
because
yeah.
a lot has been said.
Yes.
And I think it's extraordinary, the kind of innovation that we're seeing from a civic technology perspective when we think about civic data. But for me as an AI ethicist, we've got to think about how do we do this ethically? Because it's always about the deployment of responsible technology, because what you want to build would be sustainable and resilient cities, just not smart cities. But we've also got to understand that historically, cities have always been the living lab of many social experiments that have also failed. And what we have seen in cities is that many times we have our underserved, high needs communities, sometimes our immigrant, undocumented communities who live in these cities. So while we're trying to make cities more efficient and more effective and more excellent, who are we trying to make that for? So as a criminologist and criminal psychologist and as an AI ethicist, we have got to ensure that we always bring a justice-oriented and trauma-informed approach to the ways in which we are thinking about deploying technology in cities. So it really is always about ensuring there is an inclusive approach, ensuring that innovation is ethical, ensuring that when we are thinking about the design and thinking about the ways that we can innovate and that we can excite ourselves in these cities, we are also thinking about the people who are living there. As I would say to you, coming from the United States, where, historically, we have seen many of these living lab experiments really not benefit our vulnerable communities. I think as we are thinking of AI more broadly, and we're thinking about a human-centric approach, or we're thinking about approaches that really are built to make cities more smart.
Yeah.
We've always got to deconstruct what smart really means, and smart for who. So I love the idea. I love what you're doing. It's all about innovation, so it's about maximizing those rewards, minimizing those risks,
Yeah.
and always bringing a responsible approach to the ways in which we think about technology.
Well, thank you very much. And now I would love to know from Mark how he's going to make it inclusive, ethical by design, let's say, and to make it also together for who he's making it. Mark, could you reflect on that, please?
Yeah, sure. I think that we're making good steps within that area. So what you see, for example, what we have within the city of Amsterdam is the algorithm register, where we actually all the algorithms that are developed by the AI team within the city are documented, and we're also reviewing them on like transparency, where's the data coming from, how is it actually helping residents within the city. So I think we're on a good way with documenting and explaining why we're actually doing things. And then I think that one step that we're trying to make, but that we really have to make some progress in, is how do you really make it inclusive? Because informing residents is not everything. It's also about really incorporating them in the decision making. So therefore, what we try to do is really document it so people can actually see what is happening and give their inputs on that as well. And by also giving the information back to the directors within the organization, they can actually base the new policies that are being developed. So I think that we're trying to do our best, but really one step on the agenda for next year is making it more inclusive. And I think that then one nice example is that we, for example, have the master plan Southeast, which is like the area where the Johan Cruyff Arena, the football stadium is, which is really a living lab for us. And within that master plan, we're really trying to incorporate the voice of the residents that live there. So I think that the next step is for us to actually take those insights that we get from the master plan, incorporate it in the AI developments that we're doing as a city as well.
Fantastic.
Great. And you mentioned earlier also that there was also a living lab in Canada, right? How did that go?
Not very well.
Oh, wow. Tell us a little bit more.
You may have heard of Sidewalk Labs, which was developed in the Quayside area of Toronto, designed at least outwardly to benefit the local community there. But I think this is actually a really good example of some of the power discrepancies you're likely to see when you combine all of these different actors together, including the municipality and the tech companies, and then claim to be also providing a seat at the table to everyday community members. The question is, are you valuing those communities as experts, or are you pushing this technology on them in a way that is that doesn't provide them much autonomy or empowerment to push back? And that's exactly what we saw in Sidewalk Labs Toronto, where what initially started as a project designed to embolden and empower and develop this community actually ended up being sort of a bloated technical solution that reduced housing affordability, changed the innovation ecosystem in problematic ways, and of course reduced privacy rights.
Yep.
And so I think that can be used as a good example for tech or cities as living labs gone wrong, just as cities as living labs have incredible potential to empower local communities,
Yep.
they can also be used to oppress
Okay.
local communities.
So we have to take that into account in design. Are there, so in the US, a couple of good examples, let's say, where we can learn from?
I think they're excellent examples because we're trying to make all our cities smarter. We're trying to make them all more connected. But I think she raises an excellent point when it comes to privacy. Much of my work is situated in algorithmic policing and looking at surveillance, which presents some very serious ethical questions when you're thinking about your data and what's being done with it, how much you know about what's being done with your data. We have seen in the United States that the collection of a lot of civic data leading to the tracking, tracing, traumatizing and terrorizing of many of our undocumented residents, creating a lot of uneasiness in cities. We know that cities have always been a space as well of mistrust when you think about the relationship in many of our American cities between our communities and our police. So there are so many things that we've got to pay attention to. I like the fact that you spoke about stakeholder engagement and giving communities voice. Visibility is critical, representation is also critical, but also understanding that communities need to drive the design of the technology. So having a community-inspired approach, having communities involved in the design, and also educating communities about the powerful impact and potential of a technology like artificial intelligence, but letting them understand as well that they have rights. And data could not be weaponized against them. So we know it's all about monetizing and optimizing the data, but we've always got to be critical of the weaponization of data. So while there are excellent examples of connectivity and making our cities more interconnected, we've also got to appreciate that sometimes when we deploy an extraordinary amount of technology, we could also create more distance.
Yeah.
Because what we do is that we now divide by power and privilege, and who has access and who has limited access.
Exactly.
And that's not what we want to do.
Okay, I understand. And Mark, you have a collaboration with seven cities, let's say, in Europe. Are these also the discussions you have within these with these cities?
Yeah, so we're participating in a big European funded project. And from there, we're really trying to see the mutual challenges that we have as cities. So for example, within the field of mobility. And then from there, really try to see what type of solutions are beneficial for each of the cities to actually help us accomplish the challenge that we have. So in this case, it's focused on reduction of CO2 emissions. But I think that in this project as well, what you see is that it's really focusing on it's focusing on the challenges that we have as a city. So it's building up on the policy requirements that we have, somehow representing the city, of course. But I think that also here we could have a bit more of a specific look in how we can incorporate that ethics part and how we can really incorporate the ideas and the suggestions of the local residents. But then I think getting back about that to you, because obviously artificial intelligence is quite a technological topic, and I think that many residents, they know it from maybe science fiction, but they don't actually know what it is. So if you go to them and you ask them, what do you think of AI and what do you think of your data and everything like that, I think you will bump into a lot of resistance.
So that's one of the reasons I asked them about, what do you think about Netflix and those recommendation algorithms, or what do you think about Amazon and Amazon Choice? And you bring it home for them. You really distill it, because everyone's using AI. Everyone's using the technology. Everyone's creating data. Everyone is creating an extraordinary amount of data points about themselves. But I think what we've got to do is make it not only real time, but start having these conversations so critically that need to happen, not only in the C-suite, but on Main Street, on the kitchen table. And I think if we bring it home to how people are using it, I mean, if you're using Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn, you are using algorithms. And I think one of the most critical things is for people to understand that sometimes these algorithms are making decisions about you without you even knowing. So those questions of autonomy and agency that Allison raised, so very critical to having that kind of representation as well. So it's about futures literacy, because we're all going to be moving into the future. So we've all got to be literate about the technology.
Thank you, Alison.
I would just quickly add that I think again, part of the promise of cities as living labs is they offer the capacity to start with the citizen. The citizen doesn't necessarily need to be well versed in how algorithms work to identify a problem and to say this is the type of solution that we should be building to solve it, especially if you engage with nonprofit organizations working for particular interest groups or marginalized communities. And so I think that's another problem that we often run into, is sort of starting the conversation from a technical approach or perspective. And here's a technical solution, let's sort of retrofit to find the right social problem to apply this to. We don't necessarily need everyday people to weigh in on a technical solution. We need them to weigh in on the real social problems that we can be solving using technology.
Great, thank you very much. Is there already a burning question in the audience? Is there already someone who has a question for one of the three panels? If not, then we go further, no problem. If there is, please let us know. Yes.
Are there specific examples of AI projects going on right now that can benefit?
I cannot hear that very well. Are there? There's a mic.
Sorry. Do you have specific concrete examples of projects going on right now that benefit citizens and how they might benefit and why AI is essential for those projects?
Who wants to start with that question? Are there certain examples, let's say, where citizens are
Are involved in the technology? Well, certainly I can give you the case of University of Virginia, where we have several projects that are being done in collaboration with the Charlottesville community. New York City, where I am actually from, we have several projects there that are also community inspired. I think we've got to also believe, and it's one of the things that we sometimes forget, indigenous knowledge and the knowledge of the community is so very powerful. So the community is not only seeing themselves as producers of data, but seeing themselves as knowledge assets and understanding that they have a real high stake in what the future looks like. So it's looking at those long-term impacts, but also understanding every city is deploying algorithms. And that's the thing, is that you don't know it's being deployed or you don't know how it's being used. I know EU regulations is looking at the fact that people need to know when an algorithm is making a decision or when an algorithm is being deployed. But if you're operating in a city at the moment, you're being tracked. Your data is being collected. Facial recognition has been deployed against you. But you're also using technology in great ways. Every time you get some free Wi-Fi, or anytime you're able to move swifter or smoother. You know, we're seeing the ways in technology really are enhancing the things that are happening in all cities. All cities are using technology in this way. And you raise an excellent question, because the mere fact that you asked, where is it happening? That is the challenge of technology, where people need to know these things are happening and need to have that kind of voice into how it's being designed, developed, deployed, and adopted.
And maybe we can bring these examples more forward, let's say, and to share that between cities, for example, to show them it's working. It's working to be inclusive. It's working to let the voice of the citizens in these kind of new innovations. Do you also have an interesting example, let's say, on that respect?
I guess I have two quick examples. One is of sort of a strong approach to working directly with communities, and this is something from my own work. Right now we are working on a human trafficking identification tool. And in order to build this tool properly, we need to work very closely with survivors of human trafficking who understand the local context. And this can be sort of extrapolated into how one builds an AI for cities solution. You work very closely with the people who are most directly affected, because when designing an AI tool, there are a number of decisions, all of which may seem like scientific decisions. We often leave up to the data scientists, but really they reveal, or they should at least incorporate, a deep knowledge of the domain in order to make those decisions accurately. So we're working very closely now with human trafficking survivors in the course of that work. I see we only have 3 seconds left, so maybe I'll leave it at that. And we'll
Thank you very
discuss it.
much. Thank you very much. We're at the end of our session, but I can imagine that you still have some questions, maybe for the panel members. There's also a booth in for the 7 cities, which are living labs right now. So you can also go there to ask these questions, to see these examples. But I'm sure René and Alison and Mark that you will walking around here for many more interesting discussions this afternoon. Thank you very much for the great discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.